let's check some cover. There's our little fighter. She's gone in. Crazy girl's gone in. She's crouching. She's firing at us. And she will change covers. She will throw grenades. She can lose cover. There's a bunch of things that she'll do. Oh, she decided to run. Okay, so continuing on with our little AI that we have sitting here. Actually, I've got her in the ground here. Let's bring her up a bit. That was very nice of me. I want to bring in cover. And I am sorry if the AI videos tend to go an hour plus. I am trying to keep them short. The AI is just so hard to do that with. Trying to do much for AI in 15-20 minutes is very, 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 very hard. But, you know, whatever. At least the information's in there. So we want cover system of some type. Various other logic, I guess, we will put in. So the beauty part is I don't need to do much. I'm not going to bring in special animations in the ways for the cover right now, because there's a lot that goes in there. So we have our range combat, and the range combat really doesn't. We have to do this type of stuff here. We still have bits and pieces we got to add on. And if I look into the weapon, hold down Alt and click and go to the gun. All right, we have accuracy, and I could probably, oh geez, bring that up a little. Don't want to go too nuts. Let's go 26. I'm going to take this attack rate up to like a 0.9. All right, let's just test that real quick. Let's make sure that this person, because I mean right now our AI shoots and everything's good, right? The accuracy is a little far off with like that. All right. Yeah. So now we really just need to bring accuracy back down. Take the attack rate up to like 1, 2. But now what we want is for them during this combat phase to evaluate what's happening and possibly, you know, take cover and stuff like that. Right, so that's kind of what we need to do. I don't know how fast I should make an AK assault rifle shoot. I suppose that's one of those things you could research. Jeez. A little brutal. Okay. Alright, so anyways, let's get over to what it would be for cover. So the easiest way to do cover, the easiest way is you have essentially a cube. All right, and we don't need the renderers. I'm going to make the scale say 2. Like that. And the important thing with this cover, and it's going to be a trigger, is the direction it's facing. That's going to be the kind of the key thing, right? That's what we want to do. So we want, essentially, we need to have this thing register into a manager. Good thing we happen to have a manager system here. And I'm going to create a cover manager. And this will help with performance. Is we don't want to having to scan everything all the time, because it's not going to be good for performance. So let's call this cover. Oh. Just like that. Actually, it doesn't even need to be a box collider. It could literally just be an empty. The box collider will help line things up, though. So that in itself can be pretty much a prefab, just like that. Let's put it into our prefabs. Okay. So we could have, so the cover registers itself, or we can have the manager find everything. Either way, we have to have a list. So we have a list here. So it's going to be a game object, proxy. And really, that doesn't need any logic other than that. Actually, well, you know what? We will give it one little piece of logic. We're going to say get owner. And we're going to store this into a global called cover manager. Just like that. It's really all it needs. And then we have the list for cover. So cover itself, we can give it a FSM. I said now you could either go from the manager and find these things down by tags and give this thing a tag, or we can go from these cover things and go up to the manager. And if we do that, we just get owner, right? And that's self. And I don't know why I did that. We don't really need, we can do this all in one state. And we want to array list add, right? After the get owner, make sure to get owner first. And we're going into the cover manager. The reference is called covers. The type is game object, and the thing we want to add is ourself. Now we might have to pull this out of the start. It might work, might not. I'm just gonna do it anyways because I know this is a safer, easier route. And just do a next frame. That'll just, I'll give everything the time to kind of initiate and do their thing. Okay, this guy comes in, says, all right, here I am. Sign me up. I am a cover. Right, so now we have a cover. And if I hit play, we can see the cover manager, we have nothing because I used covers, not covers. All right, well, it's going to be easier just to add that there. There we go. So now we have our cover. It made it in. We now have a route, a path, a system that we can contact all of these, find all these covers. So now let's make something else. This is just going to be a wall. All right, and I'm gonna, just scale it a little differently. We can even go like this, something like that. Nothing special. And I'm going to take this cover and I'm going to stick the cover kind of like next to it. So that's where the cover is, right? And I can duplicate this cover and just move it over here, right? Now in the covers, there is a tiny bit of logic we could add, and we'll look into that in the future. For now, what we need is we need a template. And this is going to be, we have an output, game object, is the returned cover. Oh my God, look at that, capital O. And that's going to be an output. So, what do we need to find cover? Well, we're going to need something to cover from, right? We need a target, something we're hiding from. So that needs to be an input. So we need to say array list get next, and we're going to look at covers. We're going to look at all the covers from our manager, everything that is in the cover system, and we're going to loop. And we have it done. And we have a type, and it's going to be a game object, and we have a current cover. Right, so we're going to loop, and we have it done. So in the loop, what do we want to do? We're going through all the covers. So we need we should probably get a distance. We don't want to have to look at every single cover inside the level. We won't only want X amount. Now we could do this by just doing an overlap sphere cast and finding the covers, and that's quite possible. But this will work too. So let's get distance from ourselves to the current cover. Distance to cover. And then we're going to float compare. And if we should have a variable here. We're going to call it cover distance. That's going to be an input. How far can our AI travel? And the distance to cover. All right, so if cover distance is less, oh, one sec. So if this is, true, if it's less, then we'll call it pass. If it's greater, then we're going to skip it. And if it's equal, it'll be a pass. So pass and skip. Skip just goes back, gets the next cover, and let's test that. If it passes, however, let's now evaluate it based on an angle. So what we need is to get position. We need two of those actually. And that is going to be of the current cover, right? Current cover position. And we have a position of the target position, both world. And now that we have those, we need a vector 3 operator. Make sure to put that underneath the get positions. And we're going to take the target position and the current cover position, we're going to subtract them. And this is going to be a direction from cover. I'm going to normalize it. Direction from cover. Normalize that. And then we want to get forward. Like I said, if you don't have get forward, let's just transform direction. We're going to transform the direction of the current cover's forward direction now we have two directions. We have a direction that the cover is facing, which if we look over here, right, he's facing this way. And we're going to have the target's position somewhere, and that direction from where this guy is to the target, right? So that direction. So what we need to do now is we need to compare. So first we need a vector 3 operator. And we're going to take the covers forward and direction from cover. And we need a dot product. And that's going to give us a float. So we want those to be pretty much opposites within reason. Right? So now we can float compare. Move to the bottom. And we can take the dot, or to the dot, I guess, not. Here we can say, we'll make this a variable too. What kind of angle do we want the AI to shoot for? Right, so angle of cover, and that's going to be an input. All right, so now we have the angle of cover. So when it comes to dots, if they're facing the same direction, they are a 1. If they're facing the opposite directions, they're a -1. If one's perpendicular to the other, not knowing which side, but as long as one of them's perpendicular to the other, it's a 0. That's kind of the way the dot system works on those. So what we're saying is if this direction, this way, and this direction, if they are -1, like they're exact opposite, that's perfect, right? So we want more or less to say if you are, now you're not going to put it to -1, that's not going to be your target, right? But -0.6 maybe. If you're -0.6, it's good. You know, this can use the pass event. Or if it's less, right? If it's -1, that's even better. And if it's greater, we're going to skip. Pass and skip. Skip's going to go back over here. We're going to get a new cover and check it. All right, so here we have the distance check. Here we have the angle check. All right, so now that we've done all of that, what do we want to do? Well, let's just array add, just a normal array add, and these are going to be a list, array of possible covers. It's going to be type game object. So now we can add possible covers. We're going to add the current cover. Now we're just going to go through and we're going to call that done. I guess one of the other things that we should do right at the start is let's make sure array resize that possible covers is 0. All right, so now we get that. And once we get here, let's just array get random for now. We can add piles of logic there to actually evaluate all the different possible covers to give, like, say, a best one, or to check if it's already taken as well, which could be another check in here. So the other thing up here is when we kind of do this reset, set game object, the returned cover, I'm just going to leave it empty. And so it's going to kind of default to 0. And then we're going to have this finish FSM. Now we can save this, save template as get cover. And now let's delete that. All right, so we come along here, we have that. We're going to now remove this, go into our actions. All right, so now we have We have combat, and that's great. But we can now run FSM to get cover. And we can say, okay, we want, let's use negative 0.6. Cover distance, we'll say 20. The target's going to be our target. The returned cover is going to be, we're going to call it cover. And when we're finished, we can just do a finished event. Okay, for now, I'm just going to stick it over there. So, if I hit play, we should get one of those. In reality, I mean, they're both under the 0.6, so we should just flat out get one of those. Right? Now let's check. We did not get one of those. We don't have a target. All right, so that was one of our issues right there, is we have to get that target. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Let's do that. Let's you know what? We can just actually go in here. No. The range combat, we get target, right? I'm just going to copy this action. Go back into the get cover. And let's paste it right here. So we have to get target. So target itself isn't actually an input. We can take that out of input. If you want to use it as an input and get this part on the front end and not get it into these things, that's fine. It's all the same thing anyway. So, all right. So now let's check that. Okay, so now they're shooting at us. So they've obviously seen us. And we come along and we have no object here. So we have the distances, cover distance, and we did not get the position, so they didn't pass this, so I screwed this one up. I think I'm supposed to reverse that. Distance to cover and cover distance. I always get so screwed up on the float compare sometimes. Like it's one of those things. For some reason, I always stick one thing in the wrong fucking spot. So, all right, now still don't have any. So let's take a look. So we've got all this. Is that less? Is this number less than that? Yes, it is. We come down here. We do angle checks. Now we get the positions. All right, they got all the positions. And we get the forward, which just happens to be 1. That's probably because I just placed them down. And we're going to get the dot, which is negative 0.94, which is about right for where we are. I mean, that'd be pretty close. And we're looking at is this number. No, is this number? Yeah. See, I did that same thing. I gotta flip those around. Flip them around. See, screwing up the thing. So this one's dot. This one is angle of cover. All right. All right. So now we do have a cover, right? We've added them both, right? And if we look at our array, we should have them. What did I call it? What did I call it? Oh, we're into the wrong one. Into this guy. Into our array of possible covers. Right? We should have them both. We do. Right? Because they're both available. For where we are, here, angle-wise, to those, they're both acceptable covers. Okay, so let's take those and let's just child them to that for a minute, and let's duplicate this guy, but let's turn it like that. Dun dun dun. Now, when the AI sees us, it should get these two, because for where we're going to be, they're in a good spot. But these two aren't in good spots, angle-wise. So those ones shouldn't be there. And of course, we come along here. Now, let's go and check out how that worked. Get into our cover. And we look into our cover. We can see that there's only two in there right now. The name-wise, I didn't change the names. So we have this one. Let's click on it. We have that one. It's not letting me click. Not letting me click. All right. All right. You know what? I'm just going to change those names. Let's call this cover 3 and cover 4. There. So cover 1, or cover and cover 1 technically, should be in there. Cover 3 and cover 4 shouldn't be in there according to the angles. Right? And we come along here, not in there. We want to go to the action. I'm going to get over here, and we can see our possible covers. We see cover 1 and cover 0. Perfect. That's what we want. And if I take these things and we go like this, that should flip. Cover 0 and cover 1 should no longer be good, but cover 3 and cover 4 should now be good. So let's just double check that, make sure that works. We have cover 4 this time. That's the one it chose, right? Possible covers 3 and 4. It doesn't like 1 and 2. So we're able to get the right cover. Perfect. That's what we want. We have a system now where we can find the cover. All right. So what do? Let's see if it's null. If cover is null, we have no cover. And if we have no cover, we can just go straight into our combat for now. That's how we're going to set that up. But if we do have cover, then we can do something else. We can set agent destination as game object to the cover, right? And then once we get there, we can do some cover combat. So they see us, they're like, oh my god, we need to get over here. Now, obviously we have one issue, right? They're trying to get there, and that works all good and dandy, except for one issue. I'll show you what that is. We have a stopping distance, and stopping distance is great because we could possibly use melee and some other things too. So you kind of want to have the stopping distance, but in this case, when we do this, we don't, right? We want them to go all the way to that spot. So let's adjust that a little bit so that when we go here, let's get agent stopping distance, right? And let's say this is the cached stopping. And now that we have that, we can set agent stopping distance to 0. So, you know what? This would almost be easier as a template. Let's do that. Let's just do this as a template. All right, so obviously cover itself is going to need to be an input because that's coming from the cover system. So this part's all good. The other thing we're now going to want is we want to get position of ourselves, our current position, every frame. Actually, I don't know if we need to do that. Get distance. I believe get distance 2 can do positions. Yes, it can. So we can do ourselves, put this to none, and our target, oh, it can even do a game object. So, yeah, okay, we don't need to get position at all. In fact, let's just get rid of that variable. Ba-doop. Gone. And we can get our distance to cover. And now we can float compare. And when distance to cover is, say, less than 0.2 maybe, for less than that, we have arrived. Or if it's equal, we've also arrived. And if we've arrived, we can come down here and finish FSM. But before we need to do that, we need to set agent stopping distance back to the cached stopping. So it's back to where it was prior to going here. Now we might want to add, say, speed, right? We could say set speed, and this is an input. So up here, let's set agent maximum speed. Let's bring this up to the top to set speed. Now, again, if we want to have this kind of this thing take care of itself, get speed. Let's get the maximum speed first before we set it, and say this is the cached max speed. All right, so now we can set it and we get all this fun stuff. So down here we can now, let's just copy that one, paste it before. Let's go to the cached max speed. There we go. So this is a run to cover template. Say no, close that, get rid of that. Let's go into our actions. So now we have this, and we have this is still good, right? Because this can change our behaviors. But now instead of this type of crap, we can just run a template, or run FSM to run to cover, right? So our cover is our cover. Set speed, maybe we want to go full tilt, and then finish. Then we'd go over here. We do. This is going to be our cover combat. So we have normal range combat if we don't have cover, but then we have this. So let's see how that turned out. Right? Okay, see that? See, it was pretty quick. I mean, they were close, but you see how they sped up. They sped up, they ran right to that spot. Now that they're there, we're like, okay, we are ready for the next phase of this. Right? So there we have Now, the ability to find cover and get to cover. So that means we need various things. So when we're in cover, we can check, like for example, okay, let's add some more logic to the cover itself. Let's add one little, no, let's add it down here. You know what, screw it, let's add it right here. Once we've added ourselves to a list, let's do a trigger event on trigger enter with what is it? Is it enemy? I think it is. Okay, I have to go take a look at that. So I totally forget what I tag these people at. Animal, apparently. Doesn't sound right. Whatever. It is what it is. So animal. We're looking for animal. There we go. Send event has target, and don't necessarily need to have the store the target in this. We just kind of need to know if something's in here. All right, and this one's trigger exit. I'm just going to keep that same event. So it's literally just we go in and out, in and out, in and out. Right, and then in here I'm going to add a variable. Bool used. Right, so now we can set bool value. So used is false. Copy, paste before, used is true. Pretty simple. And now we can get into here in case we have multiple people, and we can get over to our actions, and we can say, okay, well, when we're going to get cover, one of these things, if it passes all that, actually, you know what? It would almost be easier or more performant to go this route. Do this one first and then this one, because there's a lot of actions here. We might as well do this one at the end. Okay, so that is get FSM bool and just a bool test. Oh, we have FSM bool test. I can just use that. If you don't have that, you can just use the bool test, right? We can either get FSM bool and then bool test that, or if you go on the ecosystem, you can get FSM bool test, which essentially is just them mixed. So we're going to do the cover, our current cover. It has FSM. The variable name is used. And if it's true, we're going to skip it. If it's false, it passes. Pretty simple, right? Hopefully you can see kind of a bit of a pattern going on here. Skip and pass. Right, so this is cover used. There's that capital O again. I gotta stop that. Right? So now we have that. And if I now, right, so we save. Now if I duplicate our little warrior here, there's 3 of them. There's only going to be 2 good covers that they could possibly take right now. But there's 3 people. Right? So 2 of them take it. They took different ones. And that person tried to take the same. And that's because, you know what? We should probably do. That's because that doesn't change until they actually get there. So let's get rid of that. let's just have it just like that. I know you're probably thinking like, what the hell? What the hell's going on? But now, okay, I gotta delete these because I'm not gonna do the logic in 3 different spots. So if we have cover, if we're going to run to the cover, let's set FSM bool. Of the cover, FSM used to true. That's of the cover. Right? Now we have to keep in mind that we need to set this false if we leave it. We got to keep that going, or else you're gonna have issues. Now let's can't check it with just one person now, can we? So let's duplicate and duplicate. We duplicate it a few more times if we wanted to. I'm not worried about that. So we were trucking along. Okay, they see us, they run, they don't, they start shooting because they don't have a cover. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Let's get rid of that error. We don't need them. So what is cover combat? So we could now check if they're in cover, what type of cover is it, right? Because if it's say a short cover, we should be crouching. If it's not a short cover, we could be standing, and that could be the difference in combat, right? So for example, let's go to our animator real quick. Ba-doop. Go to our crazy girl, make sure we're on the base layer. So we only have the reload and the blend tree here. So the kind of the easy way to do this is by having a, well, I guess we could have another blend tree. Would be one way. It might be a better way to do this. Bool is crouch. And if we just, I'm going to copy this guy and paste it. So we now have 2. And just go back and forth. And this is going to have exit time none. And is crouch is true. And over here, exit time off. Is crouch is false. All right, so now we obviously need to have some crouching stuff here. We have, now I should have that type of stuff. Rifle idle crouch. That's 2 crouch. No, we want crouching idle. Oh, that's crouching 2 idle. There's crouch loop. There's crouching idle. That's what I'm looking for. And then we could do the crouch move as well, I suppose. I don't know if I have it in this thing, so we'll leave it for now. Normally you'd have that. I don't think I have the animation in. But there now we have is crouched is true, right? So the other thing is now is how do you know if it's a tall cover or short cover? And you could do another variable in here and say, okay, this is tall or this is short. The other thing we could do is base it just on the height. That is another possibility, right? So if we, you know what, let's do this as a template because it's just going to keep it clean. Check cover. Well, I don't know why I'm naming that. So here we have a game object, and this is going to be the cover, and this is an input. All right. So we need to get collider. I'm going to need a object cover collider, and it's going to be type Unity engine. I'm using box collider, so I'm going to select box colliders. Okay, so now we want to get component of our cover, which the cover is an input, right? And we're going to store its collider, and we're going to get the property. We're going to get the property of cover collider. We can now, we could even do the center, but we can check the extents, right? The Y. We can do size, Y, right? Because this guy here, he's going to have a size. Does this thing. So what would be a better way to go? I'm almost thinking the extents, right? And this can be the Y. And then now we can do float compare. And if the Y is, say, well, I guess we'll compare it to 1, because as the extents, that should be a 2 on the height. Yeah, somewhere around there. So if we're equal, it's short. If it's less, it's short. If it's greater, it's tall. All right, so let's just set animator bool. We might as well do that right in this guy. Is crouch to true. Copy and paste to false. End that. And finish FSM. There we go. So now we can save as a template. Cover height. So, well, now let's go over here. Get rid of that. Come back up to our actions. So we have a cover. We are running to the cover. We have achieved our cover. We've gotten to our cover. We can now run FSM. Cover height. Our cover is our cover. And we have finish. There we go. So let's check that. Right. So it's just a super quick little thing. Goes in here. And we've seen the extents was a 1, which was equal. So it was classified as a short. You know what? No. No. I guess we should probably put this as a 0.5. Right, because now we look at it and we can see that she is right. I mean, well, it hasn't changed. It's a 1, so it should be tall. She should be in a tall, so her is crouched is fine. So if we took this guy and he was like that, want to try to keep these scales at proper. I want the proper scales here. So let's bring these down. Obviously this guy can come down. All right, that's better. In reality, like, you should have, especially if you're playing with scales, right? Make like a prefab and set all its scales to a default 1, and then child everything under that. All right, that way you're not screwing around with all these different sizes and scales because you're trying to child and parent things to frickin' different scales. It's a dumb idea. But the model, like the model you put there, scale the model, call it good. Okay. So she now has a little guy. She runs over, she gets in there, and she crouched. All right, cool. That's what we want to see. Of course, now we have 2 different styles of attacks, right? And plus, you know, what if you want grenades or something? So if, actually, you know what we should do? Instead of the finish, when we have cover height, let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of those. Let's do an easy way to come out of this system. Let's send event so that we can tell, without having to play with variables and bools, to host FSM. We'll call it short, copy, paste, and we'll call this one tall. There we go. Just like that. Because now in here, we're not using the finished, but we can now use 2 events, short and tall. Right? Because now we can go ba-doop, and tall and short. Right? Because now we have 2 different styles of combat. And if you want to see if that, make sure that works. I've been, I have this thing call me a liar again. It does that to me enough. All right, it should come out as the short. So there it goes. It went into the short combat. We're in the short combat system. So what is the short combat system? Well, if we look at range combat, we have essentially, we have a reload weapon, we have our ammo checks, we have range checks, move into range, has no weapon. We should almost figure this has no weapon out first, and we can make a different copied version of this thing modified for the cover combat. Let's see how we're doing. Okay, we have time. Actually, I'm going to pause and have a smoke. Okay, so this is ranged combat. So let's copy it. Come down here, add a new FSM, open that and paste it. So this is all fine. This one could probably just go to, well, we'll have to figure that out. I don't know. the ammo check, we have the reload. We could run a different one here if we want to do like a reload when we're, say, crouching. And we have this stuff. We have the shooting FSM. Right? So here's in range. Now, if we're not in range, right? Where's false? All right, so where has target is false. So if it's false, we can, let's send an event. Let's be clear to the system what we want to do. And this is going to be a host has no target. And if distance is greater out of range, and let's copy this guy over, put him here, only now we're going to send out of range to the host. All right, and what else do we want? We don't need the set destinations. So we don't need target position direction. We don't need any of this. Right? This is all directional stuff. Actually, you know what? We don't need any of that. We can just get rid of that. There we go. So if we're in range, false and out of range. This guy here checks for range. That's fine because we can. It'll just go out there after the ammo check. And if we're in range, I guess there's no point into this because this is really just doing the same thing. Let's just say here. So here, we don't need to reset path because we're not moving. Get FSM, so we're doing our in compare and we're doing our shooting. And the shooting itself is fine. That's not a big deal. Right? Reload. So let's save this template like that as ranged combat from tall cover. Right, because now we get into here. Nope, not that one. Actions. So if we're in the tall, we can now run FSM, range combat from tall. The weapon is still the weapon. That hasn't changed. So this is ranged combat tall. And this thing, we need those events, right, that we said we'd have. And that's out of range. And if that's the case, let's go back up to find a new cover. And the other one, what was it called? Out of range has no target. Okay. So has no target. And we can probably just go right back to there. There we go. So now we have, if we're in tall combat. So now if we look at this guy, we can adjust our size here. Adjust these. And we should now have now we don't want her just a shooting because she can't see us. We need to get her to move. Okay, so there is a few more things that we need to do. One of the things we gotta fix up is these things need to be sitting on the ground, not. Make sure that's set like that.
But Papa,
so
Daddy's on the computer doing a thing, so we're gonna have to go because we have to be quiet. I'll call you back. Say bye, Papa. I love you.
Bye, Papa. I love you.
Bye, love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So one thing we need to fix up with the range combat is we can't just shoot when we are here when we're in range, right? We're in range, we can do our shooting, right? And that kind of needs to change because we have to adjust our position. So what we need to do is actually find a position of from our cover where we can go shoot from, right? So with that, we've moved into range. We can do this. How are we going to want to do that? Because this guy here does a burst. We loop for the burst length. We're finished. Subtract our ammo and we wait. So I think we're going to have to make another version of this. Something that has more of a, we move out of the way, we shoot, we come back and sit back in our cover. So we should probably, this video I think is already going over an hour. So I think I'm going to end it there. And we'll continue back in the next video, extending this out to really do our shooting from these covers and add grenades and stuff.